Hello, I'm Elena Catalan Busquets. I'm a student of the Master of Global Governance and Diplomacy at the Oxford University. Using the methodology of autoethnographic as a framework, I would engage myself into a process of reflexive and constructive self-observation. I would use a specific digital tool, that is a digital voice recorder clean feed, to gain insight on my process of doing my blog article on a post-conflict situation. The interview approach is used as this reflexive technique, and thus I can conceptualize this recording as a self-interview. So first of all, I would pose several questions. I would try to answer them. First, why do you have selected this post-conflict community and not another one? I have always had an interest for under-researched topics, and I think that Nepal is one of them. Moreover, it's a unique case because it shows how can we apply art methodologies in order to improve the situation in a post-conflict environment. And also, its authenticity relies on the important role that women had as combatants in the Maoist insurgents, but also at the same time as victims. So this is deeply connected to my interest on the camp of gender studies. My previous background is based on a specialization on human rights issues with a gender perspective. So I think that this post-conflict setting connects a lot with my previous research and my previous academic background. And also I want to contribute positively to highlight those post-conflict scenarios that have been invisibilized, as is the clear example of Nepal, because few people know that Nepal suffered from an internal civil crisis between Maoist insurgents and the Nepalese government. And also I think that it's important in the sense that it contributes to expand our knowledge. Second, is there some personal connection with that geography? And there's no a direct geographical connection, but I think that there is an indirect one. I am originally from Spain, Barcelona, and Spain suffered also from an internal civil war between 1937 and 1939, that it has also legacies today in the form of tensions, polarization, and conflictual dynamics. Hence, I have used the case study of Nepal to also explore how, for example, the employment of art methodologies in trying to solve tensions in Nepal could be potentially also applied in the case of Spain, that has been criticized by a poor transitional process that has left many bounds open. So I think that the case of Nepal could be extremely useful to apply it and to learn it and connected to my country. So this is why, although there is not a direct personal connection, because I do not have any family and neither cultural links in the Asian continent, it is true that the conflict situation characterized by being a civil war can trace this connection between my country and Nepal. Third, have you been able to understand in the broader sense of the meaning your post-conflict settings? Have you been able to put yourself in that community's shoes? There is one barrier that has prevented me to fully understand their situation because I have never been a victim of a conflict. I'm from Spain, a stable country, and that it's true that it had suffered from a civil war, but it was years ago. And this barrier can be conceptualized through this idea of the standpoint theory, that it's a feminist theoretical perspective that argues that knowledge always streams from social positions and hence is always socially situated. And although I can try to overcome this difference and put myself in the shoes of this community, I will never understand completely what it feels to be a victim of a conflict or even to be an ex-combatant waging a war. That said, it's true that the application of intersectionality and the human needs framework has enabled me to deconstruct part of this barrier and obstacle. And by focusing on the most vulnerable, for example, women, but also families with missing relatives, I have been able to craft an inclusive and full picture and develop some empathy that has enabled me to bridge this gap. How important has been the use of digital technologies in this process? I have used, on the one hand, ChatGPT to select and filter the important sources to understand the conflict and post-conflict in Nepal, in the sense that I have used this artificial intelligence tool has enabled me to detect the most important research field and research work on this area. So it has enabled me to gain and be effective and also save a lot of time. Also, the course of digital journalism by Reuters has been very useful because it has taught me about digital tools to gather information. For example, I have been able to use social media platforms to explore some of the artistic initiatives that I described on the blog that have helped to solve some of the tensions in the Nepalese society. How important has been the use of a blog format? The blog for me is like a perfect format because it gives you the impression that you are talking to someone as having an audience for your work. In that sense, it enables you to feel that your work is going to have a broader impact that goes beyond your mere research. Because it's true that, for example, during academic work, you write essays or you craft different research work, but do you know that it's not going to be impactful beyond academia, that it's only going to be read by your teachers and professors? But in this sense, knowing that the blog is going to be published on a website also encouraged me and motivated me to pursue my research because I had the impression that I was contributing positively on two fields, one under research topic, as is Nepal, as I have previously mentioned, but also on another under research topic, that is the use of art on conflict situations. What did you find about yourself during the task? I have realized that as part of my shifting identity as I've researched, I always consider what I'm doing in terms of how it may be useful or impactful for the society. Hence the blog format, as I said, knowing that it would be published motivated me in the research process. So it has shown one dimension of me that I did not know before, that it's that my source of motivation, my source of purpose, my source of meaning is on contributing positively on society. So this also is connected to this idea of human needs framework that shows that one of the human needs is feeling that your life is significant for others, that you contribute positively to your society, to your local community. So in this sense, I have learned this dimension of myself that I did not know before. And also, exploring the art methodologies and their role in post-conflict situations, I have also discovered one part of myself that was hidden, and I have realized that I like writing, and that writing is not just a form of sense-making for me, but also is a form of creative expression, a kind of poetry. Next question. Would you continue to use these approaches, frameworks, and digital tools in the future? What are your plans in the future? I can imagine using the methodology of autoethnographic and self-interview for my dissertation, and I think that it's going to be a useful reflexive tool to think about my research process and also to detect areas of improvement. Also, I would try to apply lessons of the digital course by Reuters in my dissertation because it's on social media digital diplomacy analysis, so it can be useful to gather different data. Canva can also be useful to create visual materials for my presentation during my master's, but also in my future professional experience. ChatGPT definitely and other artificial intelligence tools would be employed in my essay as a way to detect the most important sources in my research field. The digital recording clean feed has also proved very useful, and it would be employed to record my interviews during my dissertation process. And finally, I would try to also apply the framework of human needs perspective in some essays, because most of my essays and most of my research field is based on human rights. So I think that the human needs perspective would complement beyond the legal field from more like a moral perspective this human rights framework. So I think that it would be extremely useful. Finally, I want to conclude with 3 main key points or takeaways. First of all, I think that it's very important to use this research and try to draw connections and parallels to other post-conflict situations. For example, I have given one insight that it's to what extent we can apply it to the Spain case, but also, for example, it would be useful to apply it in other geographies, like for example, in post-conflict situations in Africa, and to see to what extent our methodologies can also be useful in other post-conflict settings. Another key takeaway is that art is very powerful. I think that art methodologies, like for example, theater, but also poetry, but also, for example, rituals, as shown in the Nepal case, can solve some of the bonds that are the legacy of conflicts. So in this sense, I encourage my readers to keep exploring the use of art methodologies in post-conflict settings and how these art methodologies can be used to fulfill also human needs at the same time. And finally, I think that it's also important to grasp the relevance of two frameworks. This is the intersectional framework combined with the human needs framework that both are applied in my blog, because I think that it's important to detect the most vulnerable populations that are impacted by conflict. In this sense, it has been families with missing relative ones, but also, for example, Maoist ex-combatant women. And I think that it's important to grasp this vulnerability through the intersectional framework, but always apply it and combine it with the human needs framework that shows you a way forward on how use these art methodologies to fulfill the needs of the most vulnerable ones. Thank you very much for your attention.